Good day. You are listening to the Bloomin Bodhisattva podcast, brought to you by the Rissho Kosei-kai Dharma Center in Oklahoma City. I'm James.
I'm Alyx.
I'm Jocelyn.
And I'm Karin.
And we're the
Bloomin Bodhisattvas.
So today, well, I think we have a little bit of a confession we need to make to our dear listeners. We forgot something.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah.
Buddha would be disappointed.
So, our recordings are way ahead of what our releases are. And so we're like, on episode 10 or 11 or something like that. And we got all the way through the Eightfold path and missed one. It's sad. So we actually missed right livelihood. And we didn't really realize it until we had listened to all the recordings back and all that sort of stuff. So we are going to have an entire episode dedicated to right livelihood. It is episode 7.5.
It's our little mini-sode.
It is, and we'll see how many it is, because right livelihood, there's a lot to discuss.
And we like to yap.
Yes, we do. So let's yap about what it means to make a living. And so I guess a good thing to do would be to start off with a quote from our dear founder, Namu, who said, right livelihood is this: to gain food, clothing, shelter, and other necessities of life through a vocation that is useful to society and beneficial to one's mental, emotional, and physical health. Wow, that's a lot of things to ask out of a job. So, do you guys feel like you're doing that?
No.
All right, so we're going to kind of break this down. I mean, listen, we're in a society that basically tells us, that we just need to do anything we need to kind of, make ends meet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we need to really look at, what are our options and, what does Buddhism say, and figure out, what can we do in our current economic system. So why do you guys feel like your jobs are not, making your physical, mental, and emotional well-being happen, or maybe even benefiting society?
I'm a server. My hourly pay is not guaranteed. It depends on other people's kindness.
Yes, it does.
And it's stressful, and I'm one of the only veterans, I say in quotation marks, left at my restaurant, and so I have a lot of responsibility, and I don't get paid enough to do it.
Right, so high stress, low reward.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds about right.
I'm in a very similar place at my job, but different jobs. I'm a host, so I tend to greet tables, bus tables, all that. We've had a lot of turnover recently, and management has been wacky, to say the least.
You and me both.
And I am one of two people that have been there for the longest, at least in our job. So it's a guy who's been here for a few years, and me who has been here for less than a year, and we are essentially the seniors.
And you see that, in restaurant work, and not just there, but a lot of instability, which is very, very stressful.
It is. And I don't like it.
And of course, Karin can talk about the joys of being retired.
But I have to say the teaching is right livelihood.
Yeah.
And I think I would struggle with teaching in Oklahoma now with the restrictions about what can be taught, about, expectations of pushing religion
Yeah.
within the classroom, violating separation of church and state. And those would be challenges for me, for sure. But I have to say it was rewarding, and I feel like it was of service, and it made a difference. And so I feel fortunate because I was able to, I feel like I achieved the right livelihood thing.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I never really intended, when I was young to end up being a teacher, but that's kind of how it turned out for most of my life. In the service, where you're really doing good, one of the things you have to kind of face up to is that you're just not going to make a lot of money. It's a career and it can be secure and all that sort of stuff, but it's not going to get paid an incredible amount like you would say, in corporate situation. And I hear what you're saying. I mean, teaching is difficult. Students make it difficult, but they're children, and that's kind of what they do. And then you get it from higher ups where you have pressures to conform, and so it definitely comes with its set of stresses. But in terms of right livelihood, I feel like with teaching and there are a few other jobs that you're doing good. Maybe it's not always contributing to your own mental, emotional, and physical health, but it's definitely there's definitely rewards for it. So we should talk about a little how we deal with an economic system, frankly, that kind of encourages suffering as one of its characteristics of the system. And, how we kind of make our way through that as we figure out what we should and shouldn't do kind of with our livelihood. So, like we said last episode, Buddhism says, well, you don't need, to write down a whole list of do's and don'ts, and then it proceeds to write down a whole list of do's and don'ts. And so,
but it's really flexible. You got to follow your heart, Dad.
And contradictions just aren't as much of a problem as we seem to think they are. So let's talk about the list of things that Buddhism specifically says are not good ways to make a living. Okay, so there's a few of them. So we're just going to go one at a time and kind of discuss them. So the first one is animal slaughter. So we've talked about this before. All right. We don't hunt our own food anymore. We don't grow our own livestock. It is done in an industrialized way. And the things that happen to animals in these incredible industrialized butcheries are horrific, and there's just no denying that. And so Buddhism is going to say anything that can, that has the ability to feel, fear and pain and, and that sort of thing, you're damaging. If you inflict that on animals, anything that's conscious, you're creating bad karma. And so reverence for life is really what you're going to see out of Buddhism. All right. So does everybody understand what sentience is when we say, have limitless compassion for all sentient beings?
Yes.
It's like animals who can comprehend themselves.
Yeah. And mostly, it kind of means birds and mammals. Lizards, maybe not. But, that's the animals with the limbic system who can feel emotions.
I don't know. I once had to save a lizard, a little baby gecko from my workplace. And I don't know, looking into that thing's eyes, it felt like it knew itself.
Or it felt like you just were projecting your
I can project onto animals. It was a long shift.
Okay, that's fine. It's all right. You can anthropomorphize away.
It's a long shift, Dad.
So, yeah, we have to really look at, not just sort of, health costs, but also environmental costs. And I'm not sure we've really talked about that. The livestock industry really does do some serious damage to the environment. I mean, Karin, are you familiar with some of the things that happens there in terms of environmental cost?
The pollution, for sure, the rivers and it isn't just beef industry. It's chickens and
Pork.
yeah. It's really changed the rural landscape significantly these past couple decades.
Oh yeah. The family farm is pretty much not a thing that really exists that much anymore. And so, when we're talking about right livelihood, we're not talking about just, damage to ourselves or to other people, but, damage to the earth, I think is something that we, need to be cognizant of if we want to be good Buddhists.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include consumption?
I think it can. We had a conversation in the last episode about the pros and cons of vegetarianism. And Jocelyn talked about, being more selective about where you get meat products and, how they're killed and processed. So, yeah. There are a lot of health advisories that I've been looking at about, beef in particular, about how that is not really good for human beings in large portions, as well as bad for the environment. So in the last episode, we talked a lot about, drugs and alcohol. Now we need to talk about kind of the problems selling these things. And so you can really make a case that, being a bartender, working or owning a liquor store or, anything like that is, ethically irresponsible. And so what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I do think in many ways that is true, especially like a lot of bartenders are they're trained to keep people drinking for as long as possible.
Yeah. Now they're supposed to cut people off when they get too far gone. They're supposed to call for taxis if they don't think someone is supposed to be driving. Mm-hmm. But, it is still an enabling. You're serving people who are alcoholics. Not all of them are, and those who aren't, that's fine. But there are people who are alcoholics, and you're basically enabling them to hurt themselves. And so you got to think about that. You could make a case for, the same kind of case for marijuana dispensaries. All right, we live here in a city where there's a marijuana dispensary on every other block. And it is, they are absolutely serving people. You can abuse marijuana just like you can every other psychoactive substance.
Oh, yeah. I see those places like close down in a few months. Another one right in their ashes.
Yeah,
another
it's true.
Marijuana dispensary. And every time I'm like, if the first one didn't work, why do you think building another one is going to work this time?
And it's just about money. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Well, clearly the other one didn't make money.
Well, but they'll have some kind of new marketing scheme or something like that. And so, I know that you guys, you're around drugs, you're around alcohol, and, you certainly know people that have abused them, and it's been a detrimental part of their lives. And so if you're making a profit off of that, there's something kind of immoral about that. Unless you are screening every single person and making sure that they're responsible, users. Of course, I work at a high school, and so I see people, students that are, minors that shouldn't be able to legally have these things who are so stoned they can barely function. And that's, and somebody supplied that to them.
You mentioned like you've had kids throw up before, right?
Oh man, I'm sure that all of us who have worked in schools or restaurants have vomit stories. But yeah, I've had students that are and not even drunk. I mean, they're stoned, and they've just taken so much that they've kind of OV'd and they're throwing up in my hallway.
But you can't tell them to stop.
No. you can certainly try to give them advice about what the dangers are and what it does, and so Buddhism is not going to be like anti-drugs or alcohol, but it's going to say that unless you can keep it in moderation, it can be a real problem.
I was going to say the middle path is the way on that, because we've tried prohibition and that doesn't work. It just, in a way, inflames the desire, I think, so just keep it moderate.
Yeah, and you need to have judgment. What were you going to say, Jocelyn?
I just said, yeah.
Yeah.
Just agreeing.
and in general, teenagers still have judgment problems and impulse control problems, and so they don't have the sense of judgment to often use these things in moderation. And so you just have to be aware that if you're going to go into a business and you're going to make money, if it's victimizing other people, you've got to have some, moral fortitude about that and avoid things that are going to make people's lives worse and try to make them better. So the next one on the list is gambling. All right, so we live in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma has lots of casinos that are on, Native American land. And so this is a real thing for us. I mean, it's not, Las Vegas necessarily like it is in the city, but it is everywhere around us. And so have any of you guys actually been in a casino and checked it out? What's it like?
It's very flashy, in your face, colorful.
Yes. Very stimulating environment. Yeah. What else?
I have never actually been in a casino because it sounds like the most sensory overload.
It is.
Yeah. It is. It really is. It can be kind of too much unless you sort of get numb to it. Karin, what are your experiences like?
It's designed to suck you in.
Yes.
And it's soul sucking for sure.
It is a soul sucking machine, and especially if you're there like early. When you see people who have been there all night long and they are still at the machines or playing, and you can just see this dragged out look on their face and in their whole body that it's just basically draining them. Now, I guess like with anything, I know people that can just go in, they say it's kind of fun and exciting. They have kind of a limit of how much money they want to lose or and they stop when they hit that limit and then they call it a night. But there are other people that cannot do that. And, gambling's not addictive in exactly the same way that drugs and alcohol are, but it is compulsive. And it can be really, really detrimental to your entire life, to your finances. And I've known people who have been ruined by gambling compulsion. And so you have to figure that, the people who are running these things, they know full well that they have a product that people cannot refuse and that's actually profitable for them. When you have someone that cannot turn down your product, just like a drug dealer, then that is an instant money-making stream for you. And you are making money from the suffering of others, and that is just basically the definition of immoral.
At most gambling facilities, they give you free drinks.
Oh, sure.
As long as you're playing the slots and gambling, which is, it's a vicious cycle, if you will. But Oklahoma isn't exactly a shining example of economic prosperity either. No. So I feel like, and again, this is a way indigenous tribal nations, are able to profit. So it's a dilemma because people who are financially challenged are, getting taken.
Yeah, and it's so there's a real predatory aspect to things like gambling and some of the things that are on this list where, people are really taking advantage of others. They're hurting them. And then I think there's this kind of thing that you get with, capitalism where you blame the victim. I was just able to screw you out of your money, and it's your fault that I was able to do that. And this kind of self-justification that happens.
Better them than me.
Well, maybe. I mean, but how about better nobody victimize someone else,
Well,
and
clearly someone's going to get victimized anyway, so might as well have me turn a profit from it.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's the attitude a lot of people get. It's just like, it's a dog eat dog world out there, and I need to be top dog, and frankly, it makes me kind of ill.
Yeah.
The only reason why it's a dog eat dog world is because we enable that.
Yeah.
We train the dogs to eat the other dogs.
Yeah, we encourage it and advertise it, all of it. I see that, very, very young in students that, what do you want to do with your life? I want to go out and, and ruthlessly destroy my enemies so I can make a lot of money. Great.
Awesome.
That'll be great.
Talk about that in therapy, little guy.
Yeah. Well, we don't think we need nationwide therapy. So, we were talking when we kind of looking over this about, how this kind of starts really, really, really young. And so I used to take you guys when you were young to Chucky Cheese. And so you go and play these stupid, stupid little games that would spit out these tickets. And you're like, you're going to trade in these tickets for these little trinkets. And I was like, I just spent $20 on tokens for you. And you're getting a little 50-cent piece of garbage. And what's going on? Why was that fun? And what is that teaching people? So, one of the things that you'll see like at Chucky Cheese is, and you see this with slot machines as well. And there are a lot of other places you see this where you have this kind of random reinforcement. Like you don't know when you're going to win the prize. And so because you don't know how many times it's going to take to pull that slot or play that little, crane game, and of course, crane games are a good example of this because they're basically random. You just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And then when you finally get the reward, you get all these endorphins and dopamine go off and you go, and then you got to do it again. And so it's not addictive in the same way that drugs are, but it's addictive insofar as it's sending off brain chemicals, and the people who engineer these places are absolutely designing them to play upon the weaknesses of human psychology.
It's addictive in the same way anger can be addictive.
Sure, you bet. Because it's giving you this kind of boost of neurotransmitters in your brain that are kind of hitting your reward center. And then when they go away, you want to get that thing back again. A lot of things can be like that.
Just like being in a toxic relationship.
Yes. And that toxic relationships can be really addictive. Even though it's abusive, there's something about you that just keeps going back for more.
Because sometimes you get a little payoff.
All right. So gambling is like a toxic relationship.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Great. I'm glad we got to this conclusion.
Yes. So don't toxic relationship gamble, children.
Wasn't planning on it.
It's painful to think about people who really have a lower socioeconomic income can go in and even put $20 down on a slot machine just for that possible chemical high.
Well, every other part of their life is soul sucking because, they're not making enough with how much work they're putting in. And, that's hard and stressful and, sometimes miserable. And so going to the, casino and putting down money and getting that endorphin and dopamine rush, it's, one fun thing in my life of stress.
Yeah.
It's like something they have control over in a way, I mean, even though in the grand scheme of things they don't, but it's like putting that money down, it can seem like something you have power over in a powerless world.
So the system, I think in a really fundamental way, plays off of people's desperation. And that's what you see a lot with gambling or playing the lottery or whatever it happens to be, is that you are working and you can't make ends meet. And you're desperate for something to come and save you. And so, you need the system, somehow to randomly reward you. And then suddenly all of these things that desperation, creates, which is, stress and depression and anxiety and sadness, then it'll save you, it'll save your family. And so you just kind of are taking the risk because the reward could be completely life-changing. And that sucks.
Yeah.
So the next thing on the list is, it's probably put differently back in the olden days, but weapons dealing. All right, so this is a big deal for us in America. America is a particularly gun obsessed nation, and we're here in the Midwest. I'm from Texas, and you see guns kind of as part of the culture. What do you guys think about that?
Ugh.
Do you have people like coming into your restaurant like open carry or whatever?
No,
Oh,
thankfully.
yes.
You do?
Yeah. I have on I think 2 different occasions had 2 different people come in very blatantly, under the arm, carrying just a Glock.
Yeah, or some kind of pistol. Yeah.
Yeah, and I instantly do not want to serve those people, but you can't say that to them.
So why do you think that this is such a big deal? Why do people do this?
They want to have power all the time.
So you think it's an intimidation tactic?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
What else would it be for?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Just letting people know that, you've got the power of life or death over them at any moment that you choose. Of course, that's not exactly how
Which
it
is
works.
such a great thing that you definitely need to share with the teenager who works behind the counter at a ramen shop.
Well, you've got to look at the worldview that they have is that, the world is a place of conflict. And if you don't prepare for that conflict, you're going to be victimized by it. And it's very similar to what we were just talking about with, kind of get them before you get you, they get you is this very, very kind of, I'm ready for action because I feel that the world is kind of already a flawed and dangerous place and I need to be ready to protect myself from it.
I was going to say it's reinforced regularly. The military-industrial complex, peace through strength. We need these guns to protect ourselves. And it's our biggest export, I don't know about black market weapons, but, big weapons, yeah.
Yeah, the American arms industry is huge and is a big part of our economy, for sure. Mm-hmm. And we deal arms to people who are not very nice, honestly. So there is that, this worldview is that human beings cannot be trusted. That we're intrinsically, kind of selfish and evil, and that, the only way to deal with that is to make a show of power. And make sure that people know that if they try to take advantage of you, there are going to be consequences that they won't. And so it's just deterrent. It's constant, this mutual assured destruction where, we just make sure that everyone knows that if you mess with me, you're going to get hurt worse than you really want to be.
Well, when our society reinforces that mentality all the time, and of course, when you have that mentality, it's going to become a reality when a collective group of people have that sort of mentality, and it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, our world is selfish and untrustworthy and dangerous. Well, of course, if everybody has that sort of mentality, everybody's going to have that sort of reaction to everything, therefore making it unsafe and, untrustworthy and dangerous.
Yeah, and so it's really creates a culture of, of fear and intimidation. And so I think a lot of times, people who are going into restaurants and grocery stores with guns out, that's really their world, is that they want it to be a world where everyone's carrying a gun. And they feel like that world will actually be safer. than the world where, only a few people are carrying guns. And that's so in their own minds, they're doing the rest of us a favor by bringing these things out into the open because, we should know that guns are good and we're in denial of that.
Trying to normalize it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we do. So, this whole thing is that, everyone is in it for themselves and everyone is a potential enemy and we have to, live in that world. And so they feel like others are in denial of the fact that human beings are not trustworthy. And that, by feeling that we should get along with each other, we're just giving power to the victimizers. What would the Buddhist response to this be?
We don't need guns.
Yeah.
They're kind of unnecessary and create unnecessary violence.
So it's the culture of fear that's the problem, not human nature.
Yeah, maybe you should just calm the heck down.
I mean, violence against each other and hatred is a learned thing. It's not an inherent thing.
Well, I think there are people that would say that, human beings have a lot of basic instincts for violence and that we're denying that by saying that we're all basically good.
Cool, then why does it physically and mentally hurt us to be violent?
It does.
We had survival instincts to protect ourselves against predators.
Well, yeah.
But that's not, we're not, I don't know. I feel like saying, oh, that makes us inherently violent. I don't think that's correct necessarily.
No, I mean, the toll that being in that state of fight or flight all the time puts us in, it's not our natural state if it hurts us.
And you could say that the people who, aren't stressed out by violence are the exception, not the rule, and possibly psychopathic. No, there's actually been studies done on other animals. Like birds, and they found that birds who are really worried about predators all the time suffer all kinds of things. Like they don't reproduce as much.
They pull
don't
out
live
their
as
own
long.
feathers.
Oh yeah. And you can see, every animal, sentient animal, they can get stressed out and traumatized just like the rest of us can.
I mean, when you look at, abused animals, they are more likely to be violent against other people who are just peaceful and just want to take care of them. But when you raise a bird in a calming, safe environment, they're the sweetest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. It's just,
Well, I don't know if that, if you're going to talk about a hawk being that way, but yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So even if you do say that we have, violent instincts as human beings, you can't say that that's the core of our identity.
No.
Otherwise, we would have killed each other off long ago. And then, of course, Buddhism is going to say really clearly that that's not our intrinsic nature, that that's actually a poison, and that poison is anger.
Yeah, isn't it one of like the however many poisons?
There's 3, and it's one of the 3. Yeah,
3 poisons.
Anger, lust, and delusion. There it is.
Yummy.
I thought it was greed.
Okay, so you can call them a bunch of different things. So lust and greed is like desires.
Do they fall under the same thing?
Right. They're desires to get something. Anger, fear, hatred, those are all desires to push something away. And so those are 2 of the big ones. And then the third one is ignorance. Yeah. All right, which is what really causes the other 2. All right.
But as we leave this topic, arms sales, manufacturing is very profitable.
Right.
So people don't want to budge on, giving up that, aspect. But it is ironic that protecting the right to bear arms is more imperative than protecting life itself.
Yes.
The people on the receiving end of the barrel I'm referring to. So I don't know, it's such a overwhelming predicament we find ourselves in this nation. Just this isn't the Wild West that we once knew.
No.
And and a shotgun to protect yourself, or to go clay pigeon hunting, or that's not hunting, but for sport, what's being manufactured isn't for sport. It's the whole design is to kill as many people in the shortest amount of time. And that's really goes against any Buddhist principle, I think. That I don't know how anyone with a conscience can really justify, but, we have a whole, segment of a population that has bought into that based on fear.
Yeah, I actually have like a little relevant anecdote. I told Dad about this already, but the other day I was getting out of my classes at college, and my campus, we have like no guns, so no concealed carry, obviously, because it's a school.
Right.
I was coming out, and this guy, he had like a giant blow up beach ball, and he was like, "You want to sign, or you want to write something on our free speech ball?" And then he started, like, while I was like, writing on it, because I didn't want to say no. I don't know. I was being polite. He started talking like, "Don't you think we ought to have the right to protect ourselves?" And I was like, "Oh, I know where this is going." And were it any other situation, I might have argued more. Mm-hmm. But I was getting off of classes, and I was tired and wanted to go home. But he started talking about how he had this petition for people to start concealed carrying at school.
Oh, God.
At our college campus. And I don't know.
And it's funny how they think it's like it's a free, almost a right of free speech, that gun ownership is a form of free, protected expression, in the same way that words are. And that somehow by, clamping down on that, you're limiting their expression of liberty. And that's just crazy. And for Buddhism's going to say, first of all, very, very clearly that nonviolence is the only way. And that, if you think, violence is a way to solve problems, then you're wrong. And that's not going to actually get you what you want, and it's not going to make the world a better place. But here we are living in a world where people feel like somehow restricting guns is restricting their freedom and liberty to have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
It's infringing upon their ability to learn at school. To not
yes.
have a gun with them at all times. They need their emotional support gun.
Yes, and it goes right back to this normalization of just like, should be able to walk into an old schoolhouse and just everybody's got a gun on their desk, and this is how we learn.
No, it was specifically concealed carry.
Yeah.
They want, to have a gun and have people know that, anyone here could have a gun.
Yeah, it's
but you don't know if they have a gun or not.
Mm-hmm. And that will keep us all in check.
Because that's what I want out of my education.
It's so ironic.
Yes.
It's so ironic.
The guns, if everyone has a gun, we will all be at peace. That's the rationale.
What if some mentally ill person who, has an episode of some sort, has a gun?
Which is just like most gun owners.
Or someone watching a mentally ill person having an episode has a gun and doesn't know how to deal with someone who's having an episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens.
And then school shooting ensues.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I want to do on my way to English Composition 1. Get shot.
And the solutions offered up have proven not to work.
No.
Yes.
The solution is you have a gun.
Right. Or have more security. Well, Uvalde proved that having more security didn't save anybody.
Violence just begets more violence.
It does. So,
I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
It's just this one's a hard one not to judge.
Yeah.
I mean, we forget that. I feel like America is so self-absorbed in ourselves, and individualistic ideals that we forget that there are other countries that have completely banned guns and there is not an issue there at all. They're more peaceful. There's not as much violence in their country. Like, I think Norway is one of them that has laws like that. And I don't know. It's just...
Well, Canada doesn't even have the same kind of gun restrictions that we do, and they don't have the levels of violence we do. America is it's a uniquely violent culture.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure there's something that we're doing. So in a Buddhist world, we're not out to get each other. It's the opposite, actually.
We don't need guns because we're all working for each other's best interest.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? Yes, we can.
I can.
All right, so another on the list is things that produce toxins. So this is different from like drugs and alcohol, that sort of stuff. Toxins you could take in a lot of different ways. You could look at things that are psychologically toxic. You could look at things that are polluting the environment, or you could look at things that are unhealthy. And so all of those things are very, very much produced by the industrial world around us, and so.
So you're saying it's the Industrial Revolution's fault?
Kind of. So psychological toxins would be things that encourage the three poisons: anger, lust, and delusion. So what kinds of things would those be?
Gambling.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you bet.
I mean, capitalistic society is very greedy, and so that's breeds psychological toxins, I feel like.
Yeah, totally. Just the sheer materialism of it, I think you could say is psychologically damaging. Okay, what else?
Unfortunately, election cycles have become psychologically toxic.
Yeah, where it's hard to even watch them.
They're way too long.
Yeah.
In other countries, they last a few weeks.
Yeah,
or a few months.
And there are certainly other countries that where the political opponents are very outspoken and bash each other a lot. But man, we really put ourselves through. I don't know. It's like PTSD is what it feels like to me. Watching these debates and yeah, we do have some very toxic people running for office at various levels, but it's really hurtful, and it kind of it sort of takes your faith away from the political process in general.
Yeah, it's hard not to be nihilistic with the sort of political environment we found ourselves in.
Right. It's hard to find stuff to believe in, and that's why, Buddhism is a real source of solace, I think, for all of us here in this room right now.
Yes.
In the midst of a world that is very un-Buddhist. Aww.
We're linking arms and hands right now.
That's very nice. I feel warm and tingly already.
Connecting with the song, huh?
So let's talk about stuff in our food, like toxics that are in our food. What kinds of things would you think about?
Processed food.
Yeah.
Processed food. It's cheaper.
It is, and there's a lot of chemicals in there that are not necessarily doing us any good. You could just get off on refined sugars, refined processed food. Yeah, it's
trans fats and GMOs.
Yeah,
corn syrup.
Oh yeah, we
It's
really
addictive.
and again with the profit motive, you're putting a lot of things out there that people are going to find kind of addictive because they're really there to sort of play on our instincts to want certain kinds of food, and there's really not a lot of thought put into whether they're actually good for us.
And then sometimes there's no other choice because sometimes the more processed foods or, say, fast foods are so much less expensive than going to, like, your local, like, organic grocer.
Sure.
Some people can't afford that.
I can't afford that.
No. Food deserts are places, especially in, like, more rural areas where the only reliable and affordable source of food is fast food places, so McDonald's. And that's where they turn a huge profit. They are profiting off of the fact that they are the only option and that they are essentially poisoning these people.
Right, where there's just not a lot of fresh food. You see that in inner urban areas as well.
There was this thing that I saw on that people were like listing the ingredients of just the French fries there. And there's like all these different chemicals that are proven to have caused cancers in other ways, or like the fact that there's yellow food dye in the French fries.
Yes, just to get them to look the right color.
Which is crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, what about different kinds of pollution? Like environmental pollutions.
I mean, there's CO2 pollution. There's,
so greenhouse gases. Yeah,
greenhouse gases.
Oh, I see people like I take the highway to get to school. So like 4 days a week, I see like at least one car that is just billowing black smoke, and it's usually a truck, not like a heavy duty truck like a F-150.
Yeah. And almost, I'm like, almost proudly billowing smoke.
And I'm just like, that can't be fun to drive.
Mm-mm. And we see things. We were talking about this with our food system, things getting into the water supply.
Fertilizers and stuff like that, washing into our waterways.
Pesticides.
Yes, pesticides.
Known carcinogens.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, we're living in a system that is producing, toxicity as part of what it does and how it operates.
And aren't you proud of it? Ain't it just the American way?
It is, but this is definitely a global problem, and it's not just endemic to America. And so, you see at the basis of all this, sort of this trade-off where you get short-term benefits, sacrificing long-term harm. So the next thing on the list is something called profiteering. And so profiteering is very, very specific. It means that you're making a profit either off of a crisis, when demand for something goes really, really high and you just happen to have that thing, and so you can charge a lot more money for it because people need it. Or other things where you really have people over a barrel where they need your good or service. And you can drive up the price just because they can't say no. So, you see this like people during times of war making lots and lots of money off of arms sales, and we've talked about that before. So it's basically taking advantage of people's suffering. Examples could be like pharmaceuticals.
Big pharma.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I see it and I acknowledge that its existence. I just don't really have a whole lot of information on it to be able to have a articulated opinion.
Yeah.
I think it is downright cruel that scientists, or not scientists, I think, but like corporations can make patents for necessary medications in a lot of cases and profit off of the selling of medication specifically.
I mean, there is a point that you can make that profiting off of someone else's suffering is immoral, especially if that's health. Because nobody has unless they're lifelong smokers and they get lung disease. People get sick for reasons that are beyond their control.
And I am in no way saying that doctors and people who develop medicines shouldn't get paid for their services. It is a very necessary field, but I don't think it's something you should be like getting rich off of, if that makes sense.
Right, and Buddhism would be, again, if you're an ancient herbalist back in the day, treating, patients, you should get, paid for all of that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, people who are, shareholders, making a profit off of people when they're not really doing anything. They're not actually distributing the healthcare. Now, they would say that they're providing, resources for research and development and facilities and all of that sort of stuff. And, and you can make a case for that.
I mean, and yet none of that is accessible to the majority of people in America that are lower class.
Right, and that's technically not profiteering. Profiteering would be where you are intentionally inflating the price of something because people can't refuse it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
And that does happen.
if I'm providing money for these things to be researched, maybe once they get researched, we should turn up the profit on it for me, who's giving you money, so I can get money out of it. That's only fair.
Yeah. So you've got, the profit mode of getting into, healthcare and people, very strangely enough, are very resistant to, some sort of universal healthcare system like you get in most other, first world countries. Why do you think that is? Why are ordinary people opposed to a healthcare system?
Because we're going to have to pay higher taxes for it.
Well,
As a lot of people's...
Yeah, but not the same as when you're paying the medical fees.
Yeah.
And a lot of that will get redistributed to people at the upper end of the income scale.
It's because it's not profitable.
Well, that's partly, but that doesn't really explain why individuals, would be against it.
That's it. Bingo. Individuals.
Yes.
Why should I pay for your health care or
Right.
your sick child's health care?
Right.
Redistribution, that's socialism. We put this evil, just mystique about it.
Right. And so even sharing becomes somehow a problem.
Communism.
Yeah.
To me, it's a hungry ghost problem.
Yes.
Well, not for the consumer, but for the industry. How much more profit do you need to make? There's no cap on any of it. It just, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's not enough, whatever it is.
And I like that hungry ghost analogy because, the definition of a hungry ghost is that they can never be satisfied.
It's not ever enough.
Yeah.
Not enough profit. There never will be enough profit to make off of, sick people or people needing health care.
Yeah, and you get people who could actually benefit from a healthcare system opposed to it because they've been programmed to feel that any kind of government involvement, any kind of thing that rewards people across the board, they have to be opposed to, and that's a shame because what that does is it's kind of stigmatizes compassion. And that is kind of sick. Ooh, see, we were talking about healthcare. We ended on sick.
That was so
that
good.
nice?
I'm proud of
Wasn't
you,
that
Dad.
nice?
Knee slapping right now.
All right.
That's less of a joke, more of like, just like a cool play on words there,
Yeah,
tying it all
thank you.
together.
All right.
I got you, Dad.
Okay. I'm not even going to pause. We're just going to go straight to.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing, we're just going to talk about predatory business practices. And so probably back in the day, again, this would be people that are just, profiting off of victimizing others in any way. So
It's like in how America was built on the back of indentured servants.
well, and slaves and
But I'm sorry, I was going through history right now.
right.
It started with indentured servitude.
Yes.
Which instead of kidnapping people most of the time, it was they would take people who wanted to go to America and they'd be like, all right, we'll take you, but you're going to have to work off that fee for taking you to America. So it'd be like for years and years. And they would work these people to death because, nobody knew how to run a colony.
Right. And that's before you even get to the Industrial Revolution where they were doing that in factories.
It all goes to just working people to death. That's what America was built on.
Yeah, and so we can see all kinds of examples of that. Now that we have the internet, there's all kinds of ways to try to like skim money off of people. You guys were talking about multi-level marketing and pay to win kind of schemes.
Yep.
it kind of encourages people to be, predators and to, we have a name for it. Somebody's a mark. All right. Do you guys know what that means when somebody's a mark?
No, explain it to us in excruciating detail.
Okay. I would like to think my detail is not excruciating, but I'll try my best.
Target?
Yes. So a mark is someone who's marked as like easy to trick or deceive into something.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so you see that, we talk a lot about, big corporations, and all that, the powerful. But really, if you look at how it works, the poor prey upon the poor. Almost, that's the majority of what happens, because everybody's in a desperate situation and you're just taking advantage of someone who doesn't have the power to get you back. So one of the examples that I think of when I think about predatory business practices are just the whole salespeople in general. Have you had to deal with like hardcore salespeople?
Yeah.
Okay, describe what happens.
They just continue to try to get you to just bring you in, bring you in, and does not leave you alone.
Mm-hmm. So
it's not take no for an answer.
This is less of an interaction with salespeople, and it does go back to me complaining about work some more. But we're going through some managerial shifts right now, and what corporate really wants us to crack down on is getting reviews.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And basically what they want us to do is they want us to go to every single customer and beg for reviews, which is something we can't control. And it feels really weird that they're trying to get us to really crack down.
Yeah.
It's invasive.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It's invasive that they want us to do this. It's invasive that they want customers to do that. It's not something the servers can control, because I know if I was in the shoes of being a customer and someone was begging me oh, you got to make a review and have my name in it, I would say yeah, okay. And then not
get reviews. We have our district managers coming in and smacking down these cards on people's trays for us to take them over to there, and they're aggressive about it. And
that's exactly what they're doing here.
Don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that to somebody because I know how. There's a lot of policies that people are trying to implement in the restaurant that I just do not listen to anymore, because it's this is so invasive. This is not going to get me my tip. This is not going to get us good reviews. This is just
it's annoying.
When he was describing what the whole review thing, when he was pulling out the little Google scan cards or whatever, he said oh, people have started quitting over this. And I'm yeah. Does that not put something in your head that when someone sees this, they hand you their 2-week notice and they said, this feels like begging, I'm not going to do that. You have to justify it to yourself instead of saying, this isn't working, we should try something else.
So instead of serving, you're manipulating.
Yes.
It's pervasive in so many aspects. Doctors, they want, any appointment I've had, I'll get a follow-up text with fill out the survey.
Yep.
That has to do with health. That's just one example, but I was trying to think of some others where I'm going, it's that comes with, the service that was provided. You have to give them feedback for whatever reason, and it's that's crazy, though, that to have that expectation of doctors.
All of it. And so, these things are, making people actively unhappy. They're promoting suffering, but they're done in the name of profit. And so we really need to look at that from a livelihood standpoint. And so, when I have been in charge of other people, I have been very, very cognizant about not making their lives any more miserable than I needed to make them. So, okay.
I'm just so depressed talking about this. Are there solutions?
There
Can
are.
Buddha help us navigate into a better world somehow?
Let's do it.
Can Buddha change the economic system in America, please? Jeez.
Yeah, but it'll take generations.
Aw.
I think from all this, and it is depressing. I mean, we feel like the system that we're in is really, kind of toxic in a lot of ways, and that it is much, much bigger than the four of us. And certainly, feel like not only can we not change the system, it's hard just to operate within it as a free agent. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to go against the grain of all of these things and to try to practice the Bodhisattva way in our particular economic environment. How to stay grounded so that, we feel like we're not losing our moral compass with all of these pressures to try to conform with things that are unethical or immoral and hurt other people. So, what can we do? What's stuff that we can do to try to, what Nawano said, be useful to society? So, do you guys want to hear my story?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, one of the best jobs that I ever had was I was going to school at Naropa in Boulder, and I was working my way through school as a janitor. And so I had this one building, and I just was in charge of cleaning this building every night. And so I had to clean probably 12 toilets a night. And I felt really good about that. Why?
You're doing something of service to others.
Exactly. And it's there's something about, just kind of cleaning up that has kind of a stigma to it. But at the time, I felt like I was really kind of, I was thinking, wow, what a cool Buddhist job to do. I'm actually, going through and people are going to come in the next day and their space is going to be better than it was. And I'm not, there were some times when I had to throw stuff away that I was like, no, this is not good. This does not go in a landfill. But I didn't really have a lot of options for that. But other than that, I was really trying to not use a lot of really bad toxic cleaners or any of that sort of stuff. And it was kind of a cool job. And so there are definitely opportunities in the world. And Karin and I were talking about teaching being one of those. But a lot of the people at the Dharma Center, I mean, they're healers. They work, like Roger was, working, with 12-step programs. That there are ways that you can have a positive impact. We've got other people that are social workers or therapists. There's a lot of ways out there where you can actually help not only not do damage, but repair damage.
I think solutions also is from a teaching aspect, but, not just in the classroom, but for young people to help instill compassion and empathy. And that's going to have some impact. It's a long game. We might not see its immediate effects, but in time, yes. And, stop stigmatizing the working poor, changing our, mental attitudes about people that are unhoused. They're there, it's a systemic thing. They're not there by choice. They don't want to be there on the corner begging. So a couple little solutions, in my pursuit of, desperate pursuit of finding solutions to what seems to be an insurmountable quagmire we're in.
Yeah.
That's predatory.
Yeah. So, we talk about, the other part of what Nawano said, having a job that's beneficial to your mental, emotional, and physical health. And so I know that you guys work in your crappy, minimum wage post-high school jobs is pretty miserable. But as you start to figure out, how do you go from having a job to a career and where that might, lead you and, what kind of, education or training do you need? That's really something to think about because not only do you, have the chance to do good to other people. By doing so, you have the chance of like having a livelihood that actually doesn't stress you out as much as it could, and might, you know, benefit you as a person as well. So, and one of the things that Karin brought up that I think is really good to understand is that I think we underestimate how being poor is really, really bad for you. I mean, not just financially, it's bad for you emotionally, it's bad for you psychologically, it's bad for your health, it's bad for you spiritually. And that, you know, if we are trying to make a better world, you know, we do have kind of a ethical obligation to try to make, you know, poverty as less of a problem as we can. So let's look at what would a Buddhist economic system look like. Okay, so for Buddhism, you know, there is an inevitable progress towards an enlightened world. That is the whole point of Mahayana Buddhism, is that we are slowly crawling our way towards a better world. What would that world look like?
Fewer billionaires.
Okay, so more economic equality. I think so. Sure.
No billionaires.
I mean,
that might be a little too much, Karin.
I mean, I think that
So controversial. Oh my gosh.
I feel like you can make a case that, you know, you don't necessarily need, you know, these really great tycoons at the top of the economic ladder to make things happen, that we could do that collectively by pooling our resources, and, you know, we could build wonderful buildings and, you know, skyscrapers and all that sort of stuff without there needing to be, you know, very, very rich and powerful people at the top of that.
I personally see my ideal Buddhist world as not really having a government or economic system in general. It's anarchy, but not like in the everyone's out for themselves to spite the government, but in a I have an understanding that everyone in my life and everyone in their lives are all people, and we should be working out for each other's best interest, not because there's something to gain from it, but because they're people, and I love people.
Yeah, I think you could definitely make a case that, you know, the reason we have these social institutions like government and, you know, education and all that sort of stuff is to kind of keep us from victimizing each other. And that if we just weren't motivated by that in the first place, we wouldn't need a lot of these rules and regulations. And so that would mean everyone kind of becoming bodhisattvas.
And isn't that the goal?
That is absolutely the goal. And so, you know, we can talk about how frustrating it is to work within the limits of the system. We can talk about, you know, how hard it is to, you know, try to fight back against, you know, all of these things that, you know, we feel are kind of oppressive and controlling us. But in Buddhism, if we are saying that everyone has Buddha nature, and that we all have this light of compassion within us, and that means everyone, even the predators of today, they still have Buddha nature in them. What we're saying is that through modeling compassion, by trying to commit acts of kindness, we are slowly but surely bringing that Buddha nature out in everyone, and that eventually all of the safeguards that we need because we're afraid of one another will stop being necessary.
Be kind and loving to spite them all.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you all for listening to the Blooming Bodhisattva podcast, brought to you by the Rissho Kosei-kai Dharma Center in Oklahoma City. And stay tuned for the next episode, where we actually 100% did finally finish the Eightfold Path. Until then, our fellow bodhisattvas, keep on blooming!